Your brand may be staying on top of current trends, but are you agile enough to stay relevant, resilient, and successful as customers, competition, and the world continues to change at a breakneck pace? I'm thrilled to share the newly revised version of my first book, The Agile Brand. I'm calling it The Agile Brand Revisited. It's been updated to reflect our continually changing world, and it provides 7 principles that form the backbone of an agile brand, offering detailed insights and actionable steps for incorporating them into your business strategy. This is the book that started it all, and I'm excited to share it with you. It's now available in print and digital formats and available everywhere. Learn more by going to the Agile Brand Guide website at www.agilebrandguide.com.
It's time to gather loved ones together for all the holidays' best spread. Lynn's has great prices on all your favorite Thanksgiving items, from delicious turkey with all the fixings to mashed potatoes and yummy pies. We have everything you need to create your perfect Thanksgiving dinner. Whether it's cooking the traditional meal, completely store-bought, or a combination of both, your best holiday meal starts here. Learn more and start shopping today at linsgrocery.com. Lynn's, where delicious begins.
Welcome to Season 5 of The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we talk with enterprise and technology platform leaders about the people, processes, and platforms that make marketing and customer experience successful, scalable, and sustainable. This is what creates an agile brand. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom, advisor and consultant for Fortune 1000 marketing and CX leaders and teams as principal and chief strategist at GK5A, and best-selling author, keynote speaker, entrepreneur, and Agile certified coach. The Agile Brand podcast is brought to you by Tech Systems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To sign up for the Agile Brand newsletter and get the latest insights and articles on marketing technology and CX, or to purchase a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, go to gregkihlstrom.com. You can also find all my books on Amazon and other retailers. And now on to the show. By 2023, 65% of the world's population will have its data covered under modern privacy regulations, according to Gartner. With this, marketers and advertisers are under increasing pressure to both adhere to data privacy regulations while maintaining and increasing the effectiveness of their efforts. Today, we're going to talk about first-party data approaches, Madtech, and how marketers and advertisers can be more successful in a world that is increasingly focused on consumer data privacy. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Jonathan Moran, head of MarTech Solutions Marketing at SAS. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for having me. Long-time listener, enjoy your podcast, but a first-time participant. So happy to be here.
Yeah. Thanks for joining here. Looking forward to diving in here. So why don't we get started by you giving a little background on yourself, as well as what makes SAS unique in its space?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about me. I've been working in enterprise MarTech for 20 years for a variety of companies, both international and domestic. I'm based in Raleigh, North Carolina, along with my wife and 2 kids. So currently I'm with a company that's called SAS, which is one of the analytics and data management really pioneers, dating back over 40 years, right? Getting it started in the mid 70s. SAS is a bit unique in that we not only provide data management and analytics technologies, but we also have solutions that sit on top of those core data management and analytics solutions, right? And so these software solutions focus on risk management, fraud and security intelligence, and lastly, MarTech and AdTech, right? Which we call customer intelligence. So our marketing and advertising solutions leverage the technologies and the capabilities from the broader business at SAS, which really helps our solutions stand out in the marketplace from a strength of offering perspective. When we talk about marketing and advertising solutions in conjunction, we refer to it as customer intelligence at SAS, but that's essentially what it is. So that's a little bit about me and kind of what I focus on, running the marketing for our MarTech and AdTech offerings at SAS.
Great, great. So SAS released a white paper a little while ago called Where Does Marketing Stop and Advertising Begin? And it discusses first party data strategies, which we've talked about quite a bit on this show and still very, very timely for those listening. And the topics we're going to cover today are really based on some of the findings as well as some of the items discussed in that white paper. So there's three main strategic actions that are recommended within the white paper, and we'll start with the first, and that is to double down on first party data strategies. So first, as a starting point, even though I touched on it in the introduction, can you paint the picture of what are some of the challenges that marketers and advertisers are currently facing with first party data strategies, just so we have some background?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we talk about marketing and advertising solutions in conjunction, right? We commonly refer to that as Madtech, right? So it's a merging of the two terms. As far as challenges the marketers and advertisers are currently facing, it's really, in my mind, it's a convergence of a variety of global factors, right? So today we have this idea of the new kind of digital nomad, right? It's the person that wants to have a hybrid work environment. They want to travel. They want to, use the money that they're making in their tech jobs to really do the things that they love, right? And so, these types of people are expected to double in number in the next 3 years alone, right? And so what is their lifestyle today, right? We think about, how they live their lives, and really in the past few years, their work and lifestyle has shifted dramatically.
Yeah.
And as a result, digital media consumption really skyrocketed, right? We particularly saw that in video and streaming apps, right? The idea here is, online behavior, online purchasing, those sorts of things continue to be, increasing. And at the same time, if we look at kind of the broader networks, true 5G broadband was rolled out to a majority of the United States population. So what does that mean? Well, that means that things like in-game advertising and the metaverse and time spent with augmented and virtual reality, it's all increasing, right? And so, the new channels that we talk about from a customer engagement perspective now, it's no longer direct mail and email and things like that. It's in-game, in-stream, in-app, right? Those are the new kind of engagement channels. And so there's big agencies like Omnicom and others that are forming new divisions to focus solely on in-game media planning and buying, right? And then you've got, companies like Roblox that are, in games like Roblox that are announcing that they'll be launching in-game advertisements, the IAB's updating its advertising standards. So, all of this is indicating this merger of marketing and advertising, because these advertisements are coming into our traditional, what we think of as traditional and emerging marketing channels. And so what this is doing is it's really creating this concept of what I like to call relevance as a service, right? Every digitally enabled consumer wants everything immediately, right? So, on-demand nature of, you think about the on-demand nature of as a service style offerings combined with the personalized content and advertisements that this idea of relevance provides, right? And these types of relevance as a service offerings allow for kind of hyper personalization. And we've seen, everything is turning into, we are now in this subscription economy, right? Where we've got, subscription services like Netflix and Spotify and Amazon Subscribe and Save, quick access, it's easy personalization, it's high relevance, and it's, focused at that individual consumer, right? So, marketers are having to account for that. The way that they're doing that is, they're thinking about, okay, what do I need to do from a consumer privacy perspective? What do I need to do from an ecosystem perspective? And they're really, looking at the details that are there, right? So from a privacy perspective, data deprecation is occurring, right? Google's announced their, third-party cookies are gone at the end of 2024 if they don't push it out again in favor of this concept of topics, right? Apple's changing, their email and app privacy protections. And then, new environments are being created, new formats, new channels, Meta's VR headset, it's tracking eye movement, it's tracking facial expressions. So AI is being brought very much to front end CX. And, as a result, brands are having to think about, how do I maintain consumer data privacy from both a marketing and an advertising perspective, right? And then if we look at the kind of the broader media ecosystem, there's this idea of retail media networks. Being able to create and have a retail media network that allows brands to monetize, first party data is huge, right? This concept of data monetization is very hot, and it's something that marketers and advertisers are thinking about. The video landscape's changing, right? SVOD to AVOD, ad supported business models are all the rage now. And then a lot of brands, they want to take the power back over their advertising, which they traditionally have pushed out to agencies. They're now bringing that back in house, which is another indicator that Madtech is becoming more and more of a real thing.
Yeah. So how would you then, given all of that, how would you then define, what is a first party data strategy? Is it kind of all of the above? Is it, how do you define that?
Yeah, I mean, it involves a lot of things, but if I had to create a simple definition, I think that it's a first party data strategy is, centered on the concept that as data deprecation occurs, right, as second and third party data become harder to ascertain and the quality of the data becomes less because of privacy restrictions, other sorts of things, that brand marketers and advertisers have to focus on zero and, more importantly, first party data, right? So a first party data strategy is a focus on first party data, putting it at the forefront of what you do.
Yeah.
So, if I think about, the different types of data, and I don't know, how many of the listeners are familiar with the different data types, with, simple definitions really quick: zero party data, volunteered to an organization by a customer or prospect. First party data is collecting during interactions whereby, value exchanges occur. I, as a consumer, will give you my data if you give me something of value, a reward, a discount, a loyalty perk, so forth and so on. Second party data shared with an organization from another company, right? And then third party data is aggregated data that's usually sourced from public and non-public sources that the consumer or prospect may not have permitted an organization to use, right? And that's why data deprecation is occurring. So first party data is all about, that strategy is all about focusing on that most important data type in my mind, which is the first party data.
Before we continue, I'd like to make sure you're aware of the upcoming CXPS 2023 conference, May 8 through 11, 2023 in Durham, North Carolina. CXPS is a great CX event focused on professional services firms that want to know how to take the next steps to make their firm successful in integrating client experience with their firm's strategic initiatives. To learn more and register for the conference, go to clientexperience.org/CXPS-conference. That's clientexperience.org/CXPS-conference. And you can register with the code AGILE200, that's AGILE 200, for $200 off your tickets. You can hear from top professional services executives and CX thought leaders like myself through a combination of keynotes, breakout sessions, workshops, and panel discussions. Make sure to register at clientexperience.org/CXPS-conference with the code AGILE200 for $200 off your tickets. Now let's get back to the show. So there's a lot of components of a first-party data strategy, as you mentioned, but customer data platforms or CDPs are certainly a big part of it. And a lot of organizations are looking to CDPs to help them with this. Can you describe how the right CDP or customer data platform can help an organization to achieve their first party data strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my mind, a customer data platform has four main components. So I'll talk a minute about each of those four components. So the first main component of a customer data platform really focuses on data ingestion, getting data into the customer data platform. And brands must have the ability to collect data from across channels and devices and points in time in order to develop, that complete customer view. And the data collection has to be granular, right? You can't collect data at an audience level. It's got to be down at the individual consumer level. So there's technologies that help brands collect that granular data off digital properties. So it often includes standard first party data attributes like customer and prospect behavioral data. And data must be able to be collected and ingested across any type of technology platform, right? So it's the CR data from the CRM application, it's data collected from mobile applications, contact centers, so forth and so on.
Yeah.
And then, when you do have the access to second and third party data, right, whether you're purchasing it, or it's coming in via an exchange or a data clean room or something like that, got to be able to ingest that as well, right? So it's not just, collecting data in a first party manner off of branded digital properties. It's also being able to ingest second and third party data as well. So that's kind of the first component, being able to ingest data from a variety of different channels, solutions, so forth and so on. Second component of a CDP is really around identity management. So once you have the data, how do you perform identity management and resolution, right? And what this involves is creating, a system or processes to join in new data that comes in with existing customer profile data, right? So if I've got data that already exists about Greg, how do I bring in and append new data, whether it's, data that's anonymous or data that's been authenticated, that sort of thing. So this data has to be joined in real time, and it's got to have, the ability to be deterministically matched, right? I can't guess. I've got to be able to determine exactly, oh yes, this is data about Greg. It needs to be appended to his profile. I need to have a single profile that resides in my customer data platform. So, being able to perform identity management and resolution is the second big piece. Third piece is being able to perform what's called audience segmentation. So this is the idea of, grouping customers into audiences in order to execute these different use cases within MarTech, right? So audiences is kind of the next iteration or the next generation of what we used to call segments, right? So audiences are comprised of both, on-site and cloud data, and these audiences should be dynamically updated with digital customer activity as it streams into the CDP, right? So today we're hearing from a lot of customers and prospects, well, we've got data in like an AWS or a Snowflake or a GBQ or Amazon Redshift, something like that. We need to be able to bring that into our customer data platform. And, the idea of doing that is important. And in order to create audiences, you've got to be able to pull from those data sources. And you've got to, not only apply the simple segmentation methods of the past, but you've got to also include advanced modeling, clustering, and targeting capabilities, right? And so you should be able to do that as you create these audiences that are comprised of both marketing and advertising data. Yeah. And then the fourth piece is really, okay, I've brought the data in, right? I know who the customer is. I've put them in an audience. Now I've got to activate that audience, right? So it's all about customer journey activation. I've got to engage with this audience in some way. So the ability to provision and activate data for these MadTech business use cases is required. So, the audience segments should support omni-channel journey orchestration, right? They should provide, the customer data platform should provide a real-time record of when events are sent and received into applications, right? Be able to collect not only, contact or engagement history, but also how, consumers are responding to these engagements. So, being able to understand the results of customer journey activations should be supported within the customer data platform, right? And we'll talk about that in a little bit more as we kind of move on. But that's using, techniques like multi-touch attribution, journey insight and analytics, and so forth and so on.
Yeah. So the second part of the white paper I wanted to talk about is to use customer understanding and enterprise decisioning. So that the second strategic action mentioned. Can you go into a little detail about what exactly this strategic action should include?
Yeah, absolutely, Greg. So this is really where applying analytical insight to CDP customer data comes into play, right? So creating a customer data platform from, various departments across the organization really develops that level of customer understanding. When customer data is, ingested, sourced, and layered into a customer data platform from all departments, then, layering analytic insight on top of that data becomes much easier. So performing analytics against a comprehensive customer profile versus that siloed channel specific or departmental customer profile makes the most sense. And when you have that comprehensive profile, then you're able to put on top, techniques like, attribution, forecasting, analytical optimization to understand business trade-offs, and then also perform that real-time decisioning where you're using, arbitration and rules and common decisioning techniques to, deliver a priority offer or engagement to a customer. So, when brands have these holistic metrics on the customer that they, derive using analytics, they can understand specific customer metrics that they might not have been able to understand before, right? Net promoter score, conversion propensity by channel, and other data-backed business decisions. So the result of holistic customer understanding and enterprise decisioning is twofold. It improves the customer experience on one hand, but it also improves the operational efficiencies of the organization on the other hand.
Yeah. The third strategic action mentioned in the white paper is to embrace data-driven omni-channel customer journey activation and measurement. And this is certainly an area I do plenty of work in this space myself, and I'm most excited about this area. Just I think there's so much opportunity to innovate and really reach customers in better and more authentic ways using some of these methods. So, when you say data-driven omni-channel customer journey activation and measurement, that's a mouthful there. But can you paint a picture of what does that look like from the customer perspective?
Yeah. So, at the end of the day, as organizations think about this concept of MadTech and marketing and advertising data coming together, it's going to result in better customer engagement, right? So it's going to result in organizations being able to use the massive consumer data pools, sources of data that AdTech offers, and it's going to allow them to combine that with the contextual targeting and hyper-personalization techniques that MarTech provides, right? So, for the end consumer, I think it's going to result in in-stream advertisements that are better, they're more relevant, they're actually enjoyable, right? I'm interested in that offer because that's something that I just looked at on a marketing channel the day before versus, the way that a lot of these in-stream advertisements and other kind of advertisements have worked up until this point. There's no real relevance associated to them, right? So I also think that as organizations start looking at first-party data they should look strongly at alternatives to, big tech, right? So consumers are, seeking, they want relevant relationships with brands. And, as data deprecation is occurring, we're going to see a data grab occur where, a lot of big tech providers, as they know second and third party data is going away, or is going to be harder to get to, they're grabbing as much data as they can, and they're storing that in what's called walled gardens, right? And so I think that if consumers want to continue to protect their privacy while, allowing brands to deliver relevant engagements to them, then, they're going to have to think about how they can engage in these value exchanges that make the most sense for them, and really allow them to get to these offers that make the most sense for them, but are also benefiting the brand. And I think we'll certainly see that as MarTech becomes more and more of a reality.
Yeah, yeah. And so what are some of the changes that brands need to make in order to really embrace this approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's really thinking about, how to control their data, right? Data governance is a very broad area that, we could have a whole nother podcast on, or
Right.
4 or 5 podcasts. But data governance is something that brands need to put at the forefront, right? So, they have to think about, how they just like we talked about with the customer data platform, how they ingest the data, how they store the data, how they protect the data, how they share the data. That's first and foremost. The second thing is, joining that data and applying insight to the data, right? Just because you have the data doesn't mean you should always use the data.
Right,
but if you
right.
do have it, and you have the right analytical techniques that you can layer on top of that, then you're going to start to, see a lot of decisions and see a lot of insight that you might not have seen before. And then I think the third thing is from a kind of action perspective. It's all about integration and extensibility, right? So as you're thinking about bringing marketing and advertising use cases together into this concept of MarTech, you really need to think about, do I have the right solutions in place, right? Can my customer data platform talk to my advertising solutions and vice versa? Can my MarTech and AdTech solutions talk to each other and vice versa? So it's really about, thinking about how everything works together in your ecosystem, because as we move into this kind of new environment, things are changing, and, flexibility, extensibility, integration, those are all kind of top of mind for me, and I think they should be for brands as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, so one last question before we wrap up, and kind of keeping on this topic of customer journey activation and measurement. What's a piece of advice you would have for an organization that maybe they're not too far along in their maturity there, but they want to take a first step towards omni-channel customer journey activation and measurement? What would you recommend they do?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to sound very commonplace and trite, but it's so real that I have to use it. And that is, think about the experience from the customer's point of view, right? And
Yeah.
so there are techniques, right? We've talked about customer journey activation. There's also techniques around, customer journey optimization, which is slightly different, but it really involves, really, instead of forcing a consumer down a predefined marketing or advertising created path, right? Guide them, pull them, set up guardrails where they can make their own decisions to get to that end conversion event by, and you as a brand are offering them, steps and content and those incentives along the way to get them to that conversion event. Because the last thing, as we talked about at the top of the podcast, as consumers have changed, the last thing they want is to be forced down some marketing or advertising path that doesn't make sense to them, just because, the organization's got some money to spend on this initiative or this marketing program or what have you. So that would be my one piece of advice. It's really, look at it from the consumer's point of view. If you as an organization think it comes across as, annoying or interfering or what have you, then it probably does from the consumer perspective. So I would certainly, tell organizations to keep that in mind as they move forward.
That's great. Yeah. Great advice. Well, again, I'd like to thank Jonathan Moran, head of MarTech Solutions Marketing at SAS, for joining the show. You can learn more about Jonathan and SAS and access the white paper we've discussed by following the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.gregkihlstrom.com. That's GREGKIHLSTROM.com. To get a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, visit my website, or you can find it on Amazon or other retailers. The Agile Brand is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Until next time, stay agile.